Lovely welcome to everyone here for the fifth XYZ talks. And my name is Omolola Akinniyia, a master's degree student of law, digital innovation and sustainability. And I will be the moderator of this session. So very briefly, the XYZ talks are a series of interactive panels that bring together three generations: Generation X from 1965 to 1980, and then Generation Y from 1981 to 1995, and then Generation Z from 1995 to 2010. And then we are here to present the MSc program and to discuss a specific topic in the fields of digital innovation and sustainability. And we want to ensure interaction and collaboration among the three generations to create a better world for now and posterity. So today's XYZ talk is on development strategies in the digital and ecological transition in African cities. And this is going to be a transformative and educative session, and I would want us all to be part of it. So before I introduce our guest speakers, I would like to invite Professor Silvia Scalzini to present this, the MSc program, Law, Digital Innovation and Sustainability. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Omolola. I'm very glad to have the opportunity to present this innovative and challenging Master of Science in Law, Digital Innovation and Sustainability on behalf of its director, Professor Janusz. This Master of Science aims to forge the future manager of ecological and digital transitions through a multidisciplinary approach. Indeed, the goal of this program is to equip students with a solid legal background with equally strong economic, managerial, and technical knowledge. Such experts in innovation will be able to manage complex processes and engage in multi-stakeholders partnerships in order to face the big challenges of digital innovation and sustainability. Data show indeed how the digital and economical sustainable transition is at the core of the future economic, social, and technological development, as also the European Union multi-annual financial framework running from 2021 to 2027 demonstrate. Within this framework, law is in particular the focal point to guide future managers into the current and prospective challenges. Legal tools are not only fundamental to identify, to manage, and to mitigate risks, but also to root the innovation management decisions into legal principles and rules. To make an example, international and comparative intellectual property law and policy are fundamental in order to make decisions about the protection of intangible assets, as well as in order to understand and manage the mechanism of open and collaborative innovation. The Master of Science in Law, Digital Innovation and Sustainability has an applied and inquiry-based approach built on three pillars: engagement, mission orientation, and job on the training. Research and innovation labs enable students to learn how to design and develop international and European projects, such as within the Horizon Europe funding program. Furthermore, the pioneering X labs directly engage students to work in groups with real-world challenges, such as the future of cities and regions, the future of Earth, the future of industry and manufacturing, the future of energy, telcos, and networks. Students have the possibility to work directly with top managers of public institutions, international organizations, top-ranking companies in several industrial fields by co-designing the solution to a challenge that ends in the creation of a proof of concept of an innovative and sustainable project. Such labs are part of a 2-year incubation process based on an ecosystem of partnership and mentor, which is aimed at the career development and which runs parallel to the fundamental teachings. As for the fundamental teachings, the Master of Science encompasses the core path during the first year, and 2 majors on the following year, based on a mission-oriented innovation program. The Master of Science also offered to future students 5 full scholarships and 12 studentships to enhance the synergy between the faculty and the students. Thanks to all these integrated initiatives, the Master, with a tailored approach, helps every student to build a career by enhancing their respective passions and interests. The learning and career development experiences are integrated in a continuum in order to encourage students to engage from the very beginning in the future challenges of the digital and ecological transition with an interdisciplinary approach, to collaborate with each other by creating inclusive and diverse communities, and to develop new skills in order to be ready for the job market already during their training. For these reasons, the Master of Science in Law, Digital Innovation and Sustainability makes incentives for individual and collective entrepreneurial and research initiatives and focuses on self-governance of events such as these talks, which are not only aimed at engaging prospective students, but also at developing discussions, proposals, and suggestions on the covered topics, thus enabling students to build projects on the ideas and on the ins caught during these talks. For any question regarding the master, on the slide we have the context to the for the Master of Science, and now I would like to leave the floor to our students, whom I would like also to thank for their perfect organization of this event.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor Silva. That was a nice one. And now I would like to invite one of us, also a colleague, to present LDIS community and the X Lab. That is Motas. Over to you, Motas.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Omolola, for this bright chance. In fact, my name is Motas Anwar Mudir, and I will be presenting to you the LDIS and the community. Here, could you share the slides? And we start by saying that we are the first explorers with the total number of 50 students from 10 different countries of origins and 14 different degrees and 20 different universities. With well gender balance of 54 females. Sorry, could you start slides 1? So the slide isn't visible. I will just proceed on and say that we are well gender balanced with 54 females and 46 males. As LDI students, we have ambitions, different ambitions. Like me, I would want to be a change globally, or a change of the world. In fact, that is my ambition personally as mothers, and we are really from different backgrounds. Like me, I came from agriculture and natural resource management background during my bachelor degree, and at LDIS, I really enjoyed it so much, and with different diverse nationalities, of which 73% are Italians and 27% from other nationalities like Ghana, USA, Canada, German, Nigeria, Spain, Russia, and Sudan, where I belong. Many of us are from other universities, of which 69% are from other universities and 31 are from Louis University, with 55% of which one is to be specialized in the sustainability, which I fall under the category of sustainability and in the sector of agri-food. 28% want to join digitalization, 17% want to take both and enjoy. My dream job should be as want to change the world. I dream to join sustainability in the sector of agri-food. Therefore, I end here with the X Lab. This X Lab, we have different X Lab topics, of which this X Lab, it really exposes every student to real world problems. In particular, we have like the X Lab of the future of cities and regions, which focuses on smart cities and sustainable mobility. And we have the future of manufacturing industry, which focuses on circular economy. The future of well-being, of which I was among the group member, and it really exposes me and other colleagues in tackling the problems of students' mental health during pandemics, which is really one of the challenging. And we as students, we developed a platform where students could book online therapies and try to end loneliness, depression, fear of the future, and other aspects, with the mission of letting them develop confidence in speaking up their minds or their problems. Then we have the future of energy, all of telecommunications and networks, which focuses on energy communities and smart communities. So, Sora, if you could share the last slides for you to join us in social platforms like XYZ camp, to at least scan. We have social media to follow us on our platform. Then follow our LDIS in Instagram to at least follow us to get more updates. And thank you. And I take back the floor to Omolola.
Thank you so much, Motas. Thank you very much for what the contribution you just gave us. And today it is my pleasure to have our guests with us. We have Dr. Carlo Cecchetti, Dr. Janusz Gawronski, and Dr. Enrico Labriola. Pardon my pronunciation of your name, please. I'm getting better. So I would like to leave the floor to our guest speakers now, starting from Dr. Carlo, to introduce themselves and their companies in 10 minutes each. And they also tell us about their position and vision on development strategies, as well as the commitment of their institutions towards digital and ecological transitions. So Dr. Carlo, please, can we have you?
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. I'm Carlo Cecchetti, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you. I'm a mechanical engineer with, unfortunately, I would say, because I'm getting old, a rather big experience in the energy sector. I started in 2005 with the thermal generation, so coal power plants, installing one of the biggest one in Italy, which is located in the north of Lazio, in Civitavecchia, the town of Civitavecchia. Then I moved for 10 years working for Enel Group in Russia, where Enel Group bought some thermal plants and then started the green transition of the group to renewable energies. I was the communication manager for all Russian activities, and after 10 years, I moved back to my hometown, to Rome, joining also Enel Group at holding level, where I dealt with the digitalization activities of all the communications activities and events of Enel Group, which in the meanwhile became much more international than before, and there was the necessity of being informed of what is happening all around the world. In last 2 years, I joined always as Enel Group the Rest for Africa Foundation. What is Rest for Africa Foundation? Is a link between the mass majority of important players in the value chain of renewable energies, which are interested in developing renewable energies in Africa. So inside Rest for Africa, we have obviously Enel Group with Enel Green Power, but we have an international number of shareholders like, for example, Schneider Electric. We have Siemens Gamesa, but also banks like Banca Intesa or Cassa Depositi e Prestiti. We have law firms like Bonelli Erede, and so on, because and I will tell you in my speech about the possibility of Africa. What can I say? I can anticipate this one, that, how to say, we all want to develop in a green way Africa. There is the possibility, there is the technology, but actually that's not enough. Also from the regulation and law point of view, we have really to do a lot of step forward. Some words about the situation of digitalization of the African continent connected with the development of renewable energy sources in Africa. I would say, giving the title to this speech, I would say that innovation, environment and digitalization is a kind of riding the wave of digital revolution for Africa. In fact, Africa is embracing the technological disruption in a way that sets it apart from other continents. Because what marks out the digital revolution in Africa isn't the technology that underpins it, but there's so much growing affordability, accessibility, and until recently, largely untapped demand that have made its advances so rapid, really so rapid. I would focus on 4 points. First, disruption isn't just a technological opportunity. Connectivity, I mean internet, is breaking down barriers between business sectors and opening up new markets for industrial and consumer goods, which were, how to say, not thinkable even 5 years ago in the African continent. Then, Africa is developing very, very quickly an ecosystem of innovation. In fact, Africa has a growing array of technological hubs and new and young techno entrepreneurs. Innovation hubs create opportunities for established business to partner with startups and create thriving ecosystem of creativity and enterprises. So old business can grow up very quickly as far as they can grow up new business very quickly. Then I would like to underline that by making products and services cheaper, like I said before, especially with connectivity, more accessible, low cost, and easier to use, disruption is greatly enlarging Africa's consumer class, especially not only as we expected in North Africa, but also the sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, and South Africa also. Then, like your colleague was saying before, there is a strict connection between energy and agriculture. In fact, digital technology has a strong role to play in supporting also African agriculture, bringing environmental sustainability, for example, in solar power plants. The word agrivoltaic will be day after day much more important, especially in Africa. and this will create more jobs for young Africans, boosting sustainable development of the continent. Some words about with the focus of energy sector, where the innovation in the area of digital technology will be a real game changer, especially for the sector of access to energy, and which is connected with the theme of this meeting, with the decarbonization of the electricity. So to make not only Africa, but the entire world greener. Digitalization commonly refers to improving, enabling, or transforming business model process thanks to digital technologies and digital data, generating new types of value and fast-growing development of electricity devices and software that collects, stores, transfer, and analyzes digital data, showed in recent years a big opportunity in fostering the universal access to clean and reliable energy. Here in the energy sector, the greatest potential for innovation is its ability to break down boundaries between energy sector, increasing flexibility, which is really needed if you think about renewable energy sources, which are not constant. For instance, you have sun during the day, but then you have somehow to accumulate this energy for the night when you don't have sun. And obviously will be possible with the technology to integrate different renewable system. 5 points I would underline about energy sectors, renewable energies, connectivity, and sustainability. First of all, as I said, digitalization will help to integrate variable renewable energies by enabling grids to better match energy demand. Second, also very important, energy and agriculture. Digital technology has a strong role to play in supporting also African agriculture, bringing environmental sustainability in solar plant. Third, connectivity. As I said before, connectivity combined with electrification and decentralization holds the potential to create a highly interconnected system, which is the main task, the real game for Africa for the next decade. Okay, we can install a lot of renewable energy system, but if we don't have a grid, it will be very difficult to give access to energy to the planet. Last but not least, new digital tools, because digital mostly means low-cost solution, which are, to say, much more quicker being utilized by all the African shareholders. So I would finish my food for thoughts saying that to electrify and decarbonize Africa, we need to make sure that investment in renewable energy will be continuous, sustainable, and if we do this, we will for sure create also jobs and business locally. But only renewable energy sources are not enough. We have to build up also grids to transport energy, and obviously to create laws and regulation which has to be much more similar in different countries which comprises Africa. That's all from my point of view.
Wow, thank you so much, Dr. Carlo. That was a very interesting session you gave us. And yeah, by the way, I like your pair of glasses. It looks just exactly like mine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so very quickly, we are moving next to Dr. Enrico.
Hi, everyone. This is Enrico Labriola. Thanks for inviting me to this nice talk. I would like just to present a little bit the WFP activities in the world. WFP is the largest humanitarian agency currently operating within the UN system. We reached in 2020 100 million beneficiaries in 80 countries. To get into detail about what we do, I mean, we have a traditional role that is since the start to reach out to people in need, especially in need of food, especially in emergencies and natural disasters, distributing food to the people in need. Last year, we distributed 4.4 million metric tons of fuel or food. The interesting part, and I'm dealing with the procurement, is that we buy 81% of these in developing countries, 36% from African countries. So we have a very large footprint on the food produced and allocated there. Of course, some of the food we buy is related, let's say it's not donated, but it's bought on the open market. On the top of that, we also distribute $1.79 billion in cash transfer, and that only addresses 24.3 million beneficiaries. 7 of those are refugees in 67 countries. And now it goes more on the detail on sustainability and digitalization, because our traditional role, bringing the food packages to beneficiaries, evolved throughout the time, and now we do much more than that. And actually moving the food with the entire supply chain is just a portion of what we do, because we realize that with our footprint we can also move things in a better way that empowers the people that we serve, and helps also solving from other point of views the problems that we address in order to get a world without hunger. So not only this is integrated in our procurement policy, we also developed factories with specialized nutritious food that is produced locally, and we work with local producers, for example in Yemen, to develop this food and to purchase locally. You have to think about a huge supply chain. We have 6,000 trucks every day on the road, 30 ships, 100 aircraft moving and then delivering food to the beneficiaries. So this also has an impact. But we don't want, let's say, each mile of transport is a cost that could be allocated to purchasing food locally. That's why we developed a lot the connections with the smallholder farmers on the market. In 40 countries, we work with the smallholder farmers organizations to help them reaching the market. And that is definitely something that is going to develop more and more in the future. We do that through a program which is called Purchase for Progress. So let's say that program encourages, and it's 60 million per year. That program encourages the farmers to build their own collective organization, helps their financial inclusion, helps them to reach food quality and safety up to certain standards that then help them export the food they produce, and also builds the partnership with our partners on the ground. We developed environmental and social standards for our programs. That's something that definitely is going to improve and be applied to all WFP programs on the ground. I mentioned that the expanded role is also on the vulnerability assessment, so the preparedness. We do this through a variety of instruments. One is called PAM, which is Vulnerability Assessment Monitoring, and the mobile PAM. And that goes two ways. So we are in direct contact with beneficiaries, that helps us to understand their needs through mobile phone, smartphone apps, telephone interviews, and so that helps to assess the needs on the ground on a running basis. We have also, and that's something that is developing very fast, an innovation incubator, which is based in Munich, in Germany, funded by the German government, and that developed a number of projects that are basically on the edge of technology and try to solve through digital means the practical problems that we encounter along the supply chain, or just to reach out to the last mile, the beneficiaries. So, for example, a local project is H2Grow, which is basically that the colleagues are telling us that they grow food in impossible places through hydroponics and a range of other tools, but that also helps, let's say, the local community to grow more sustainable. I mentioned briefly the cash-based transfer program, which is very large. I was saying 1.69 billion in 2020. Many millions of beneficiaries, 67 countries. This is entirely has a lot to do with financial service provider on the ground, not only traditional like banks, but also mobile provider with mobile money on your cell phone, and also through fintech. So sometimes the solution that we roll it out in the field are very, very much on the edge of technology in the world, not only for African countries. We also have a way to basically connect through these digital solutions retailers. And I'm giving you a couple of examples that we had, for example, in Cox's Bazar, across the border in Bangladesh. We have the Rohingya refugee crisis, and there suddenly, in a matter of a month, 1 million of people settled down in a place. They created a town, but they didn't have supply chains to bring food to the beneficiary, to these people that was in desperate need of food. Through this program, of course, the immediate intervention is the emergency food delivery, but then we developed retailers in order that now almost 100% of the program is run through cash-based transfer with the local supply chains, through the local markets. Across the border or even close by, the food is there, it's being produced, it's available. So it's a matter of building the supply chain in order to address the needs through local means with the digital solution. And so the beneficiaries, they don't take the food from the parcel, but they buy the food they want, the food they need in retail shop around. So that's an example of how we use the solution and the digital tools basically to address the needs, and also develop the capacity locally. And that has also to do, and I think is being addressed later on, with the common. So what we can offer in terms of development at the local level. And I think one element is also that since we work with millions of people, I'm going to close on this, we map a lot of things. We map the needs, we map the production locally, we map the food supply chains, but also we map the beneficiaries on the ground. So million people that are basically are in need, and we have data on. I think that's a challenge that we work with government on this, but that's a challenge that could be further developed and can offer actually solutions on the sustainability side, because our impact and our, let's say, footprint on the ground that can offer the tools to solve many of the problems, not only related to the food needs, but also to registration needs, the allocation of rights to these people, and potentially can help solve the hunger problem on a faster and broader scale. Over.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Enrico. That was quite educative. Okay, so let's move to our last speaker, Dr. Janusz.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me here. I'm Janusz Gawronski. I'm Italian, in fact, with a Polish grandfather. And I must say I'm really impressed with what I listened to until now. First from the wonderful students from many countries, and then from the two managers, entrepreneurs that have preceded me. I am myself an entrepreneur. I have had companies until 2014, more or less. I then sold to a group called American Express, my last company. My studies, I was studying a few years ago, like 40 years ago, in Bocconi University. I know this name must not be mentioned in Lewis. It's the main competitor that is recently losing ground, because Lewis is more and more becoming the top #1 economics university. I smile about it, but this, which was my course, strikingly resembles the profile of this new course that you're attending. And I like this very much, and also like very much the fact that you come from many countries. I myself studied in Canada with 52 other nationalities, and I really love that. I think the intercourse among people is really a crucial element to change the world. In 2016, after a few years, I was doing by myself some reconnaissance, some humanitarian would-be projects on a very, very minimal scale. I founded a small NGO called GasMuHa in the name of a Rwandan friend who was a bit of an example of the problems of Africa. And I'll tell you about GasMuHa. GasMuHa is what I try to do is, first and foremost, stay with the poor. I know this is not what you're used to, probably, although you do come from countries, many of you, countries where you have known poverty. Maybe you have had poverty in your household. But if I think of the Italian, the European, the big North students, probably they have never seen poverty from close. And I would like to bring a different point of view to this panel by talking a little bit about an approach which I think is very important. And of course, electric grids and all we've heard so far is very important, but I'd like to draw your attention of something of a small variable which hasn't been mentioned, and that is people. I know it sounds banal, it sounds like, okay, people, so what? But if you think of it, what is development really? Because development is this word is in the description of what you're studying, and it's probably the one single word that characterizes all of us here. What we would like to do is create a better world, make poorer countries, developing countries develop. And so let's think for 1 second that development is not only about objects, it's about people. Why do I say that? For example, because in 1976 in Italy we had an earthquake which killed 2,000 people. It was in a region called Friuli in the north. And the interesting thing is that everything went down, cities, villages, and it was a disaster. But 10 years later, everything was back. The buildings, the schools, logistics, electricity, everything was perfectly back, and it was even made better. And why did that happen? Of course, there were resources available to build back. And what was built back better, as Bidenomics would say. But the point is that the people were able, they had in themselves the experiences, the psychological framework, and the abilities to rebuild. And so I would like to add this small element to today's panel. And this is what we've done as GasMuHa. We have, first and foremost, stayed with the poor. That is, living in barracks, living in slums, get to know them from their point of view, sleeping on the floor, catching malaria and various diseases, and perhaps seeing from the street, looking up from the street, seeing big skyscrapers in the developed part of these cities about which we're talking, and realizing that maybe it was almost more interesting to be sleeping on the ground without a roof in the favelas, in the slums, than staying up on the 20th floor with air conditioning and with a plane ready to bring us back home for our vacations. I'd like to, I don't want to talk for too long, but I'd like to just ask the younger people among us, provoke them and ask them to think of what they want to see when they are 50 or 55, because when you're 50 or 55, you'll discover that you won't feel like working so much. The big energy to work will be smaller, and you'll start drawing conclusions about what you've done until now. And so what do you want to what do you want to see when you look back? And probably you want to see that you have contributed to a better world, to a world with sustainable projects and with a greener world and so on. But it's got to be something that includes having brought concrete people with concrete names, also a better life and a better happiness for them. I'm sorry, I'm talking about happiness when who talked before me is talking about, I don't know how many tens of ships and how many millions, 40 million tons of food. Well, I'm talking about small, very small, the small point of view, where you don't have objects only, but you also have people, and people who need to develop themselves. And probably the one missing link in development projects is I'll mention it in a moment, but let's face the fact there is a huge literature that indicates that the efficacy of humanitarian and social and development programs, the huge amounts of money, is not so efficient. Of course, I'm not saying that the projects we've heard about today are not efficient. So I don't assume that, but it's not only common knowledge. It's been studied by economists. I'm myself an economist, so I'd rather look at it from that point of view. It's common knowledge that a very small amount of the money spent in developing countries is actually doing a good job. Part of this money is doing a very bad job, and it's destroying the opportunities of countries to develop themselves. And for example, I could mention a statistic. A friend of mine from the European Union was telling me that in a country that received in 3 years 570 million euros. One day they decided to really check how much money had reached the population, and they found out that the percentage, the grand, huge percentage that actually reached the population was, I hope you're sitting on your chairs, it was just 7%. And why is that? Because you get these huge projects that sometimes, I'm not saying all the times, but sometimes they go to huge NGOs that they say, okay, first of all, I reserve for myself 30% for my overheads. Then on the job, on the ground, I won't do it myself. I'll call for another organization, and this organization will take for its overheads another 30%, and so on. And then you get these expatriates flying down in first-class jets and so on. I'm not gonna insist on this rhetoric, but rhetorica. But it's not just rhetoric. You get a world, you get an industry of humanitarian and social development work, which stays by itself. It's very nice. It's very well paid. You got nice cars. You got security. And you try to do a good job. Obviously, you have the best intentions. But when you're 50 and you look back, you might discover that a lot of what you've tried to do has collapsed. And it may have collapsed because the locals didn't actually care. Maybe it was a good idea. Maybe it's what they needed. But they didn't care about it because nobody had asked what they really wanted. Now, I'm not saying that electric grids or dams, dighe, okay, dams that fill with water and are absolutely clean energy and water for agriculture. I'm not saying that such things won't be still around after 30 years, but I'm saying that, for example, the big humanitarian crisis, the food crisis, for which the World Food Program, for example, spends huge amounts of money and moves millions of tons of food around the world, is actually caused by the same people, by the same power centers that create in the first place those crises. And all this might sound political, but it's got to be political. And I don't think we should disregard this, because otherwise we might spend our life doing humanitarian projects, and then in the end find out that we're not so happy with what we've done, because, for example, I'll just mention another thing, and then I'll shut up. For example, in Sahel, in the Eastern Africa, we have huge droughts and also food crisis. But then we should mention the enormous problem of land grabbing, l'appropriazione dei terreni. And then you get some projects which sound really good, and they are agreed at government level. And for example, somebody will meet a minister at the government level in a developing country and say, we would like to improve your agriculture, and how about making a big project? And this big project is, well, how big? Asks the minister, and then this is, well, we'll start with, I don't know, 10 million hectares. What? That's huge amount. Sorry, 1,000 hectares. Sorry, not million. 1,000 hectares. And it says, well, that's a big project. And then what happens next is that they will sign a contract, and of course somebody will come in and start planning this, the usage of this land. And unfortunately, there are people living on this land, and these people will be cast out of their lands because they don't have the papers, because they never had the papers. They've always lived there, and they don't understand what is happening. And so then we can say full of glee that urbanization is happening in Africa, and we should help build better cities. But unfortunately, a lot of the people that congest into the slums have been actually kicked out from their lands. And so all I'm saying is that there is a lot of energies utilized to improve the planet, but there are bigger energies that actually until now are very actively destroying the very people we're going to help. And to finish off, I'd like to drop here a concept, which is the concept of empowerment and self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the experience that people have that they can do it, that they can actually do it. And it's like in Friuli in 76, people knew they could do it, and people built back everything. So in Africa, what people probably don't get from projects is the experience of self-efficacy. So we drop down our technologies, we try to bring them the best we have, and we try to bring them what we have without making the mistakes that we made. And this is great, but we should ask ourselves if this is the always the best strategy, because actually it might not be possible for people to jump from their level of development to our level of development. And they might, the road that they might have to go through is a longer road. And I will finish with this quote from a missionary, a friend of mine, who has, I think, 35,000 people, children in school, and huge hospitals. And he says, if I should say in one word what people need in developing countries, just one word, the one thing that they need, I will say that it's jobs, jobs, and jobs, and well-paid jobs, not just jobs, but well-paid jobs. Because if they get jobs, well-paid jobs, they'll do it by themselves. They'll build homes, they'll select schools for their children, they'll pay for these schools, and so on. So this is another way of looking at development, and I think it should be considered on the side of what we heard before I spoke. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Enrico, and thank you. Because of our time that is fast spent already, I just want to have a quick recap of our speakers, our standing profiles. And for Dr. Carlo Cecchetti, is the Senior Program Manager at RES for Africa Foundation, where he coordinates the capacity building and training programs and the innovation, digitalization, and circular economy ones. And we had, for the second speaker, Dr. Enrico, who is the procurement officer at World Food Program for emergency relief items and services. And he's also specialized in e-tendering management and works on specific projects on procurement and supply chain optimization. And for our last speaker, Dr. Janusz, is the founder of the NGO GasMuHa, and he has managed several projects to support local communities in Haiti and Adwa, that's Ethiopia. Thank you so much. And very quickly, because of our time, I will just need the other speakers to express their last thoughts on what we've said so far here and the topic of today. So, Dr. Carlo, we are going back to you. If you have something else you want to tell us, just to round it up, because we are rounding up already. Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree with what our colleague, our friends said before. I just wanted to underline that one of the base point of the RES for Africa Foundation is to make, everything in Africa for Africans. So that's why, especially our trainings and capacity buildings, we think that they are very important, because we would like to build up a renewable energy system, a wind plant, a solar plant. But then our aim is that young or not young Africans will have to maintain it, to develop this plant. It's not for Europeans. the solar power plants, the winds, the renewables, and so on, have to be for Africans and handled, managed, and developed by Africans. That's what I wanted to add.
Thank you very much, Dr. Carlo. And Dr. Enrico, what do you have for us?
Yeah. So no, just to further address the elements that we are discussing. I think we shouldn't forget the complexity of the context we operate. Of course, I was speaking about millions of metric tons and so on, but we are dealing with people on the ground, people in very different conditions within Africa as well. Very advanced, let's say, companies and counterparts and people in extreme need for help. We shouldn't forget the political component, both in the donor side. The major donors are superpowers, and we shouldn't forget that they have also a double role as stakeholders in the crisis. There are also markets, very powerful role. They can be a part of the solution, but they could also have a negative influence on the crisis, and especially when the markets are heavily regulated. So, for example, with trade limitations and other elements that then they affect the availability of goods and services on the ground. We shouldn't forget that we deal with hunger, so where people is in desperate need sometimes for food for the next day. They go to bed without a plate of food, and that is something that must not happen. And I think it's a moral responsibility to address that needs the day it's happening, not only with more long-term solutions, because the world has all the food needed to feed all its inhabitants. Of course, to achieve the goal, it's a big revolution, and the goal is sustainability, but it's also development. So to empower people, I completely agree on the fact that we should empower people. People can empower themselves with tools. And another important element is that tools are on various sides: laws, data that are being produced, infrastructure, but also immaterial tools like training, for example. Procurement, what I deal with, is a powerful tool. That's why we try to work to find a solution on the ground from companies in Africa, and give them money, give them procurement volume, give them millions of dollars to either develop solutions that we need or to buy their solutions that are based on their experience on the ground, not only on digitalization, for example, on cash-based transfer on the ground. That is another tool that empowers people on the ground, but also for food and for more traditional ways to produce locally. That's the aim. Of course, the world is complex, so we shouldn't frame it in one picture or one angle. I think we should all take this into consideration and not forget the final goal, which is yes, development, yes, to end hunger, but also do it in a sustainable way.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And a very big thank you to our guest speakers, Dr. Carlo, Cecchetti, Dr. Enrico, Labriola, Dr. Janusz, Gawronski. Thank you all, because you actually inspired us, we Africans, especially us here, and we will do better with healthy eyes to reach the sky, and we believe sky is our limit. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone here for participating and taking your time to attend today's meeting, and we hope to see you at the next XYZ talk. And this is just to say we've come to the end of today's meeting, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.
Thank you very
Thank you, everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Talk.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thanks, bye. Thanks, bye.